Welcome to New Business in Later Life with me, Ildiko Seely. I'm an Encorepreneur, the routine queen, and the champion of thriving over 50. I'm obsessed with morning routines, energized living, and building businesses that work with your life, not against it. Each week, I share real-life stories from bold later life entrepreneurs who have said no thanks to retirement and hell yes to reinvention, while discussing good health routines for great business. Whether you are launching your first venture or scaling your Encore, you are in the right place. Let's get you fired up, focused, and firmly in the driver's seat of your next chapter. Let's dive in. My guest today is a woman on a mission who's lived many lives and is showing no signs of slowing down. Although she says she felt she had one more business adventure in her, Aliya is actually a strategic clarity consultant, the founder of Hello Bench, and what she calls a reluctant historian. She now helps female founders scale their businesses to 7 figures with less hustle and a whole lot more clarity. She is known for her gift of spotting exactly what's out of sync in a business and helping founders unlock the alignment between message, model, and mission. Aliya is the visionary behind Hello Bench, which is a grassroots project tackling loneliness by transforming ordinary benches into spaces of connection, each of them linking via a QR code to the UK's largest mental health support directory. And in her spare time, she's writing a biography of early aviation pioneer Claude Graham-White, while also investigating a rumour that one of her ancestors may have helped send Anne Boleyn to her death. Aliya's work nowadays is all about visibility, making meaning, value, and connection visible again, especially for women in business after 50. Please welcome the endlessly curious and quietly revolutionary Aliya Musa. Good morning, Aliya. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining me today.
I have no idea where we're going to go with this, but very much looking forward to it.
Well, as I said, let's have a conversation about new business in later life and good routine for healthy us and healthy business. So let's jump straight in. I'll ask you a couple of questions to get us going. One is, what is the most recent business that you set up?
So the most recent business is one I set up only a few months ago, actually, called Women Who Lead and Sell. It's a consultancy, and we have a bit of a mission. We want to help 1,000 female founders get to 7 figures over the next 3 years. So we do that through a program we've put together and consultancy, strategic business consultancy. So my co-partner, Kelly Quinn, she's an expert in sales leadership. She's already scaled a 7-figure business and everything around sales metrics and how to outreach and grow your revenue. And my expertise is I'm legally trained, but I've been in business for over 30 years and various businesses along the way. And I specialize in funding and communication, especially around sales and marketing communication. What are businesses saying to the outside world? Does it make sense? Is it clear? Is it good? That kind of thing.
Funny. The one thing that's going through my mind is that, yes, I am launching a business and got this podcast running. And yes, I would love to get to 7 figures. But a lot of what you said, especially about sales and marketing, is all gobbledygook to me. I have no idea. I know people say that you sell yourself every single day with every single conversation, but I've never actually done a sales job at all ever in my life. So although I'm learning loads of things as I go along, as probably we all do, a lot of it is alien to me. So I have no doubt that I will need some kind of coaching and mentoring as I go along, something along those lines that what you are offering. And the one question, let me just get it in quickly. How old were you when you set up your new business?
63.
Oh, wow. That's pretty amazing. So I think I also changed my sort of format, and I'm going to ask the last question now. It's like, any plans to retire?
Nope.
There seems to be quite a theme in my guests. Why did you decide to set up a new business at the age of 63?
My mother died, who I had been caring for a long time. And I was left with adult children, left the house. And I just thought, I've got one more big adventure in me. And I think, when you talk about retiring, I love business. I love what I do. I can talk business all day long. I can talk sales and marketing. I love to help people, especially female founders. And it's almost like when you talk about retiring and something is your life, something is your passion, you're talking about retiring from life. So there's no question that I will continue to do this until my dying breath. I'll be sort of coaching people on my deathbed. Don't forget to do this. And because I love it so much. And yeah, I just felt, yeah, I've got one more adventure in me. And that's how I see it. It's a bit of a game, it's a bit of an adventure, especially at this time of my life. I think you get to a point in your 60s where you've got nothing to lose, basically. You
Yeah.
know, you're on the final bit of your life, and I'm way more relaxed than I would have been if I was in my 20s or 30s. I'm like, let's give it a shot. What have I got to lose? So,
Yes.
and so much to gain.
I'm not quite in my 60s yet. I had this sort of feeling when I turned 50, and this is exactly why I'm sitting here, doing something amazing, give back to the community, give back to people. And I
Mm,
truly hope that they will take something away from every single conversation that we have.
mm,
So the female founders that you help,
mm.
uh, what do you find? Do you find them to be in the later stage of their life, or they are all sorts of ages, or at what point do people feel like they want to increase their business to seven figures?
I'd say they're all ages, to be honest. I
Okay.
think we don't dismiss startups, but our sweet spot is female founders who've got a minimum viable product. They've already proven it because they're selling it, and they reach a plateau where the thinking that got them to that point is not going to get them to seven
Yeah.
figures. And it's interesting what you say about sales. Even women who have scaled to seven figures don't consider themselves to be business women, and they don't regard themselves as experts on sales or marketing, and they shudder at the thought of the word sales. They hate it. Kelly and I were like, yeah, sales, no problem. We love it. But, you're not alone in thinking that. And
That's such an interesting point you made there, that people,
mm,
even at seven figures, they still don't see themselves as business women.
mm,
That surprises me greatly because, yeah, a lot of us indeed go into business because we've got a passion, a hobby, this, and the other, but that still just makes us the worker of the company. And we need to elevate ourselves to a managerial and then a CEO position in order to run the company as a company rather than just owning a job. But once you scale to that sort of level where your turnover is seven figures, then sure you've got to believe and understand that you are a business person, a businesswoman.
no, I think what it is, one of them put it really beautifully. She described her entire, what happened. I started off as this, and often, what's the case with female founders is they start something, just like you say, because of a passion, they spot something is missing, and they go, well, somebody should do something about that, and they're like, oh God, it's got to be me, hasn't it? So, and it's like that. I mean, one of them is the fastest growing privately owned lingerie brand in the UK called Lemonade Dolls. And she describes herself as an accidental entrepreneur. And how that came about was she was posting a lot on Instagram about body image and saying, well, do this, and talking about underwear and how it wasn't always that great. And eventually went, oh God, I'm going to have to start up a lingerie brand, aren't I? Sort of like that. And I think, and then they build it and build it, and they're so in it, doing it, that they don't really, like you say, start to take on that CEO hat until somebody goes, hang on, you're the CEO. And it's that step from founder doer to founder leader is quite tricky. And
It is
sometimes
indeed.
even, yeah, I mean, they even have imposter syndrome. Everything that people complain about at startup, particularly female founders, I can assure you, women at seven figures and double, that as well, still have all those same conversations. It's still the same stuff: imposter
Wow.
syndrome, confidence, clarity. Am I communicating right? Double overthinking stuff, all of that stuff. It doesn't go away. And I think that's why we called the consultancy Women Who Lead and
Yes,
Sell.
that's indicating to your customers straight away that they will need to
Yeah.
get into that leader position.
Yeah,
That's
and
interesting.
self-leadership as well. I think that comes in at any level of business. There's so much self-leadership required in how you discipline yourself, how you keep going
Mm.
when the time gets tough, getting into action. All of this
Yeah, but
is so crucial.
that's one of my main messages, that
Hmm.
it's we get it completely wrong. Well, I feel like I don't anymore, but hopefully people realize this, that it's not motivation you need, it's determination. You need to be determined to do whatever you want to do, whether it's in your life, your health, your business, anything. You do the determination, then, well, you have the determination that triggers the action. Once you've got the action and have the results, then you have the motivation to do it again. But then when you get up next morning, there is still no motivation. So you have to be determined to get out of bed or take that step or make that phone call, which is the action that will get you the result or not. Maybe it's the 10th phone call that gets you the result. And then that result will fill you with the motivation to go
Mm,
again. But that's still
mm.
just in that moment, there'll be a bit of motivation to go again. So yeah, for me, it's the determination that underlines everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's all self-leadership, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
that part of being a successful entrepreneur is just doing it anyway. You know, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, or feeling the lack of motivation and doing it anyway. And that's the adventure in a way, is
Yeah.
like, oh, how can I how can I expand myself as a person and really take this thing on and find that project, that lovely project that I've been talking about for so many
Yes.
years. You know, that first little step is just declaring, oh, I'm going to do this. And that can
Oh
be the
my.
scariest step.
It is absolutely. I'm living through it as this podcast is growing. I'm living through all of this and launching an actual business. Mind you, I don't know. I need to sort of reconsider this, maybe, that whether the podcast is a business. What do you think? Because you have a podcast. Do you look at it as a business
I
or a
do look at
hobby?
it. Yeah, I do look at it as a business. I said to I'm somebody who doesn't like having my photograph taken, right? So I had some real concerns about what am I going to be like on a camera. And at the end of the first day recording, I remember saying, I've had an obscene amount of fun today. This has been so much fun. But I do regard it as a business. We do, you know, we have a VA that handles all the guests. We take the guests very seriously. We do research. We look at, you know, just like you do, we look at where do we overlap with them, because it is part of our mission to get 1,000 women to seven figures. And the way you do that is, you know, Kelly and I can't deliver that one by one to female founders. We don't have enough hours in the day, but we can inspire them. We can point them to resources, that kind of thing. So it
Yeah,
is a really important part of what we're doing.
sounds fabulous. Yeah, I
Thank
think I
you.
need to up my game on that, because at the moment I'm pouring a lot of effort into my own business launch. But
Yeah.
yes, need to treat the podcast kind of similarly. But as you said, it is immense amount of fun to talk to people and finding their stories and hearing their stories and then passing it on to the public. It is fabulous, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think anybody who's considering starting a business late in life, go for it, because it just exposes you to a whole new range of people, conversations, and anybody who's concerned about sales, you should just consider that sales are a conversation. And if you're really passionate about something, you can talk knowledgeably and passionately about that thing. I think that the issue, particularly with female founders, is they find it quite hard to add a value to their passion, sort of really turn it from a hobby into a transaction.
Yes,
And
it's
and
true.
we were talking with somebody yesterday, because every Thursday we have a Ask Us Anything sounding board that's free for anybody to join. And there was a lady on there as a coach and a mentor, and she was sort of saying, "Oh, I don't know how to be authentic," and it was clear that she was having some thoughts about value. And I said to her, "Look, you have a superpower. You've just got to firstly figure out your superpower, like your particular niche. There's somebody out there looking for that. And for you to deliver it sustainably, you have to charge for it because you've got to pay the bills. So don't be under any illusions. You've just got to figure out your superpower, tell the world about it, make sure it lands in the right ears, and make sure you value yourself accordingly. That's all that marketing is. It's
Yes.
not forcing yourself on people that don't want it. It's
Mm.
basically saying, I'm selling oranges. Who wants oranges? No, you want apples. No, I'm not the person for you. Go over there. I'm talking about oranges. There will be people out there that want oranges and they need to find you. And it is incumbent on all of us, small businesses, to find the way to be visible to the right people. And
Yeah.
that's, can be quite tricky, but that's one of the things we help clients with is who you want to talk to, what's the right message, where's the best way we're going to make you visible, and through all of it, be your authentic self,
Yes. So drilling into the practical side of things.
Yeah.
My talking about value and adding monetary value to what we offer, one of the most outstanding teachings I've come across recently in my own self and business development is an author called Rachel Rogers. She's got a series of books and a little like an action book, like a workbook that goes with her books. They're all titled something along the lines of "We should all be millionaires" or "A Millionaire Workbook." And it's really good, and every chapter is like your millionaire message, your millionaire conversation, your millionaire squad. And in one of her books, she explains in real good detail how we tend to calculate, especially at the beginning of the business, calculate the sort of the monetary value. Like, okay, if I buy sugar and flour for this much and spend an hour, making that muffin, then a minimum wage is X, then I can sell 12 muffins for so much. But when you think about the value, is what sort of value do you bring to your customer? That if your customer buys those muffins and then wins over someone's business just because they provide that instead of a cheap biscuit, just saying something, plucking something out of the air here, then the value is considerably more. So how do you price your product? You price it on the value. That was really quite an eye-opening chapter for me, having never done sales and not working out things like this. So how do you support your clients along those lines?
We reverse engineer exactly what you've just said. We look at what's the value to your audience of this, and it's a combination of your expertise that you're giving them and insights and the amount of time and effort you're saving them.
Yes.
So in terms of our female founders, we have a program in which we allow them the space to work on their business because they're so often in it. So prerequisite for it is, look, you've got to allocate this much time. If you can't, this program's not for you. And go on, you're going to
I was
say
going
something.
to ask because that's I tend to find that I can make time for sitting in on a course, let's say, or a webinar or anything, but then how do I find the time to implement what I learned? Or is that something that you specifically tell your customers that they need to allocate that time as well?
Well, let me turn this on you. How
Okay.
did you do it with your? I'm interested to know, having read this book, and it sounds fascinating. I'm going to have a look at that. How did you do it with your what you're putting together? Because you're literally assembling it right now, aren't you? So
Yes.
how are you putting it together?
Bit by bit, learning as I go. Like earlier this year, I didn't even know what a funnel was. I then it was a very steep learning curve. So when I launched the podcast in February, I decided to do a newsletter with it. So it took me 4 days and two emotional breakdowns to get to my first newsletter mail out, but I managed it.
Yeah.
It was considerably harder than I expected it to be. I thought, oh, I'm good enough on the computer. I'm the spreadsheet queen. You know what I mean? I can easily put people's details into a spreadsheet and load it up. But then, of course, you need to design that newsletter and need to learn that particular software of how to put together a newsletter in their design format. So then it took a lot longer. And then I started to learn what a funnel was. But I think what I did, I took part in a challenge. It was called the Race to Recurring Revenue Challenge. So that was giving us prompt, and that really helped me because through my speaker course as well, at the same time, we were given the challenge to, like a 90-day challenge, to launch something that we can sell. And was very much the same. So, but that was more practical. So we were given prompts to think about, okay, what is it that you know? Write down a whole bunch of things that you know, and then think about how you could monetize that. And then follow up prompts to actually come up with something. And it fed into that 90-day challenge. So then I was researching, okay, what is my strength? My strength is my morning routine, where I look after all areas of my health, physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual. I can definitely talk about that because I'm living the experience of how it's helping my life and how it's helping me build multiple businesses and go on that path of becoming a successful businesswoman. And I'm literally learning everything every step of the way. Okay, now I need to do this. Okay, what's next? So I ask people, what do I need to do next? Again, I learn it. You know, whatever you want to learn, everything costs money. And when you are starting out in business, it is so hard to decide what to invest in. But having invested in the podcast and the speaker course, it's like, okay, I need to draw the line and just make sure that I don't overstretch, which I technically have done, but I'm coping with it. I worked through it. So how do you find that with your customers? Because you are one of many mentors they probably have, or coaches.
Well, the female founders we're talking to probably have a revenue of about 100K. I wouldn't say they have at least minimum. I wouldn't say they have issues with cash flow per se, although obviously they're still going to be careful. I think their issues are time, is time. They're very time deficit. But I just going back to what you were saying, and really because your podcast is about people starting, right? So startups. So take it back into the realm of that. I think actually there is a lot of free resource out there. And I think if you're looking at this whole question of what do I have to offer and how do I value it, I think that there's a lot of free stuff you can look up. ChatGPT is pretty good because you can interrogate that. You can have that as your sounding board.
The best friend.
Yeah.
Knows me remarkably well.
Sadly, it is for some people. Who was it I was listening to the other day? There was a big tech company from America, and they were saying that their oh no, it was actually Disruptive. It was the company that you use for your podcast. The owner of that was saying, we've got this AI lady that was so realistic that some guy started flirting with her. I thought that was funny. Anyway, I digress. I think there's a lot of free stuff, and I think I'm a massive fan of beta testing stuff. So like literally, even if you have to, when I've had companies in the past, I've actually gone out on the street and showed people stuff and go, what do you think of that? Like A or B, or do you need this? Or, just impromptu market research in high street. You just go and you could just go and ask people, or you reach out to your category of potential client on social media if you want strangers to respond, and just go, look, I'm thinking of doing this. Do you think there's a need for it? And how much would you pay for it? I mean, there's so many resources out there now with social media and stuff
All
like
that
that.
keeps going through my mind is, I don't have time for that.
You see? It's either time or money, or usually one of the two, isn't it?
And it's absolutely, and it's a dilemma of how much do you need to be in it and do it yourself? I mean, it was interesting. You already said that you've got a VA who manages your guests. I haven't quite got that far because it feels like, I need to have conversations with my guests, and I go networking a lot. And of course, as I talk about it, and I go to business network. So I've got a very good chance of meeting people. So when I started out, there's still a whole bunch of people in my local network who fit the bill and will come on my podcast. But now I'm spreading my wings a little and go networking elsewhere. And I think where I become a bit more active is online groups, WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups to find guests. And it's really quite nice because reaching a lot further than just my immediate business and property network. Not that there's anything wrong with the people down in the southwest of England, but yeah, different categories as well, different businesses. So that I quite enjoy actually. And then the connections that they will bring, because I do ask people to recommend others. And even if you don't get a name recommended within the conversation, people do get back to me afterwards. So it's really quite nice to actually now going international. The previous episode, the episode that's gonna this week, as we are recording at the end of June, a lady who lives in Brussels. So yeah, I've got a few people lined up who live in other countries as well, and it's a really lifting feeling to know that the audience is growing and the guests are from different places. It's very interesting. As you said, it's extremely energizing and inspiring to speak to people in all these different industries and countries.
I have a question for you,
Go
actually.
on.
Given that you're speaking to a lot of people over the age of 50 who are starting businesses, right? Are you noticing any common traits or any themes coming through? Do you notice anything?
Definitely.
What's
When I
that?
started out, I mean, as I say, I had a perception of this whole situation, and my closing question at the beginning was, "Are you thinking of retirement?" And a lot of the times it was already like it was mentioned in the conversation, absolutely no way. And when you're speaking to a 71-year-old who started up a business the year before, and she's glowing and she's obviously so happy, even though she started the business out of necessity but then fell in love with it so much that she's now just building it,
Amazing.
and not just doing it, but she's actually building it. It's one of the what is it called? I don't want to get it wrong. The multi-level marketing, one of the
Yes.
toiletry companies. And apart from the fact that she believes in it and she loves it, and she loves selling the product, but she's now really quite enthusiastically building her team. So that was Jen in episode 12, I think it might have been, or thereabout. Yeah, and 71, and
Amazing.
absolutely no plan to retire. And I think that is a very distinct theme coming across. Like there's this lady I interviewed in Plymouth. Her and her husband run a company for many, many years, probably decades, and they wanted to stop, like wrap up the business, and they just couldn't quite because they still needed the income. Both of them in their late 60s. And suddenly she got into independent travel agency. And in 6 months, she got it to such a level with such success that they were able to wrap up their previous company and they're now traveling the world for business
Amazing.
and putting packages together for people. And the pair of them just got into that. You know what I mean? So that is a very distinct theme that indeed, when you bring your passion into it, but you need to make sure that you're not just owning a job, you take it a little bit further than that. People have no intention to retire whatsoever, but they're quite happy to keep their body, mind, spirit busy and engaged. I
Yeah.
think that's a key word in there, engaged.
Yeah. And
Because
there are stats that demonstrate that,
Mm.
you're more likely to be healthier for a longer period of time if you continue to keep your brain engaged and your body engaged. So there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. Do you have any specific routines that keep you fit in every part of you, your body, your mind, your spirit, your intellect? I mean, you said you're a lawyer. Do you still keep up with anything legal or just what relates to business?
I do. I'm still an in-house legal advisor to my
Wow.
ex-husband's company. I sat up straighter then when you said about physical routines and stuff.
Yeah, go on. What have
Um,
you got?
I am not I am not a physical person. I'd say if there was an Olympics for the brain, I'd be a gold medalist, right? Because I've always focused on academia and I love learning new stuff and I'm really curious and constantly all about that. Physically, I'm not so keen. I hate exercise with a vengeance. So if I can avoid it at any point, I will.
But there are so many different ways. You can just go for a 10-minute walk during your lunch break.
You're right, and I do like a walk and talk. So that's one of my routines
Oh, there you
is, or
go.
I'll listen to a podcast while I'm
Yeah,
walking.
I
Um,
like to listen to the audiobooks when I go out on
yeah,
lunchtime
yeah,
walk. Yeah.
yeah. So I've learnt recently this thing. So basically,
Okay.
it's 3 minutes really fast, and then 3 minutes slow, and you do that 5 times, and then that's it. You're done. I like efficiency, by the way. So in terms of a routine, I do wake up quite early. And in the morning, before I get out of bed, I'm on my phone and I get quite a lot of newsletters, as you would expect a curious person who wants to keep up with things does. Some of them, quite a lot of them, I'm swiping left and going, nope, nope, I'm not reading you this morning. But that's what I do initially. And then I go onto social media just to find out what's going on in the world. And then I have some supplements I take in the morning, so that's a routine. But I'm
That's a bit
all
of a
about,
nutritional.
yeah, I'm all about efficiency. So a few years ago, I was telling myself off for not being consistent around health routines. And what used to stop me, particularly around exercise, was, oh, I don't have the time. And I think that's the case for a lot of people, right?
Yes.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to do something really ridiculous here. I'm going to do 1 minute of exercise because I'd seen something somewhere, and that's it. And I'm going to pat myself on the back, and I'm going to see if I can consistently keep that up
See,
for a month.
determination.
Yeah, like a
But you
minute.
had
So
no motivation, did you?
no, none at
Your
all.
brain knew that you had to do it.
Yeah,
Rest of you didn't want to. It's the determination of wanting to do it or needing or knowing that you have to.
yeah. So yeah, that's what I did. And I think sometimes we set goals that are too beyond us and then we never get started. So like 1 minute. So I started this 1 minute. It was ridiculous. Almost before I started, it was like time to finish. But I did it anyway. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And as a bit of an experiment, I went, well, you know what? I should concentrate on the mind as well. So I'm going to do a minute of meditation as well. And I've never really been able to do meditation. My brain is always barrier. So again, doable, right? A minute of being quiet and trying to quiet your brain, easy to
Yeah,
achieve. So carried on. So I'd added this extra minute of doing meditation. And then a few days later, I went, well, while I'm doing that, I could do some journaling, which I'd never been into journaling, but I thought a minute of journaling, how hard can that be? So sort of 1 day of journaling. And then it turned out I was doing 5 minutes a day of these minute things that I'd added up. One was doodling, one was taking a
exactly.
photograph, one was something else. And I did it for many, many months and then sort of expanded into the journaling, expanded into me going, that book I've been putting off, I'm going to write it. And I just had a marathon session and I wrote this book about a particular type of outreach marketing that I do, and just sort of churned it out. But it's interesting from small seeds like that, from routines like that, what can actually occur. And sometimes it's the routine itself that is the overcoming, then keeping to the routine itself that is the accomplishment, even as something as small as what I was doing then.
Exactly.
So,
And I think I'm so pleased that you detailed it very well because that's kind of how I started. And this is exactly what I would like to teach people to achieve. I knew for 2 years, I kept saying, I really need to find some time for exercise. I really need to introduce exercise into my life. And I did very similar to what you did. 7 minutes. I just wanted something really quick, really short, just 7 minutes, 3 times a week that I found this particular lady on YouTube. And same with the meditation. I wanted it to be really short because some you can come across some meditation practices that are like 30 minutes and so I don't have time for them. So just tiny little things. And then I built on it. And now it's quite a substantial thing, but I don't really want to scare anyone away with that because, you don't have to think like, oh, do I need to build it up to an hour and a half? No, you don't. As you just said, you can keep it to 5 minutes every day, but as long as you appeal to every single part of your health, then you've got a lot more holistic approach to yourself, and then you can run your business better. And then how amazing you came out with a book and on the back of that. That's
mm,
fabulous. Actually,
Yeah.
you're going to mention a different book because I wanted to loop back at some point to the very beginning where you said that you thought you have one more big thing in you. But I think you have more than one
I
because
do.
you're writing a different book as well, aren't you?
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's a
You know?
well, how it started was many years ago when I was a kid. My parents said to me, "Oh, we've got this famous relative, and he was a great aviator back in the early 1900s." And I sort of registered that, didn't do anything with it. When the internet became a thing, I remember going on the internet and going, "Oh, let me look this guy up." Didn't even have his name right. And noticed that, oh my goodness, there's a lot of stuff about this guy. He's actually really famous. And sort of talked about, oh, I'm gonna write a book about this guy someday. Didn't do anything for a decade at least. Then I was on Facebook and I thought, okay, I'd learnt this concept of if you want to get something achieved, tell a lot of people about it.
Yes.
So I posted on Facebook, I'm writing this book about this guy called Claude Graham White, and just put it out there.
Yes. Then
And
there's the accountability element of it.
yep,
I can't.
yep. And so I got started, and then I was progressing, but very, very slowly. So I thought, oh God, it's time for Facebook again, isn't it? So I put on Facebook, right, by this date, I think it was my brother's birthday, by this date, I will have written 100,000 words. I put the book into this app called readsy.com, which is really good. It's a very good platform for storing your book and keeping you accountable to some extent because it'll tell you you need to do X words today if you want to meet your target.
Okay.
I really got into the book and it did involve quite a lot of historical research because he's a
Yes.
real life figure. And anyway, so past the date that I'd actually said, I happened to be tinkering around with the book and finalizing it and getting it ready for editing. And I happened to remember the post and I looked at what I was at the date, and I was at 98,000 words. So
Well, 2000 is not a lot.
pretty good. And it really is a demonstration of when you make a declaration, there's a possibility something is going to be in the world because of what you said. That's the power of communication. It's one of the things we say to our clients quite a lot. And by being bold, I actually got a publisher as well. So I do actually have a publisher. It's not published yet, just editing it at the moment. But I think there's a lot to be said for putting it out there into the universe, and you just don't know the kind of vibes you're getting back from people who really wish you well, really excited for you. So yeah, that's a project that is on its way. Yeah, and
Fantastic.
it's amazing. I'm very happy with that.
I totally share that sentiment because whenever I tell people that I have a podcast, what is it called? New Business in Later Life. And it's quite a descriptive title,
Mm,
and people get it immediately. It's like, wow, that's a really interesting topic. And it's just so fulfilling that I put something out into the world that can help people live out their dreams and take from other people's stories. And yeah, there you go. You've got more than one big thing
mm,
in you, and this
mm.
other one is coming soon. So have you got? Oh,
Yeah.
you said it's been being edited, or you
Yes, it's being
finished it?
edited. Publisher's nudging me ever so gently. And he is quite a big deal. So it transpires that we may not be related to him, which is really
Okay.
funny. So the genealogical story is a bit of a story as well. I actually have someone researching him for me. I think that's kind of the part of the book is interesting that, well, here's why it started, but this is where it may well end up. And the RAF Museum up in Hendon have an interest because he created the airfield that became eventually RAF Hendon and then became the RAF
Yeah.
Museum. So they're interested in getting involved with the launch. And yeah, it's brought me into contact with lots of people I wouldn't be in contact with, like aviation enthusiasts, because I'm not an aviation enthusiast. I've had to learn a lot. So I think anything you do at any point in your life really that takes you into a new field or outside your comfort zone or meeting new people, for me, I think is a great contribution to your life because It allows you to become a much more rounded person. You start to
Yeah.
understand other people, other cultures, other interests.
But it
I
sounds
think
like
I think that's to the best for all of us, really.
the kind of legacy you're leaving behind with that book
Thank
is
you.
really quite something. A question formed in my head that when you found out that you might not actually be related, did that
Mm.
trigger a thought that, oh, what's the point of writing this book? Or by then, were you in it deep enough to just carry on anyway because of the additional the interesting things that came to your life by meeting people and being involved with organizations that otherwise you wouldn't have been involved with? Did that then outweigh the fact that you found out that you may not be related?
I knew there was always a chance of that happening. Having said that, when I look at the man, I can see my brother and my father in his face. So I'm
Okay.
like, something fishy's gone on here. But even if I can't prove it, it doesn't really matter. The gentleman in question was he sued the British government and became persona non grata. And a lot of papers have become available after there's only been one biography of him. And after that biography, which is more of an autobiography, honestly, so a little bit of a puff piece. But a lot of papers have become available since then, and a lot more interest in him because of a BBC programme that was aired in 2012. So, because of what I've uncovered, which is not available out there, and is new stuff about him, there's still another book there to be published, to be responsibly published, to almost rehabilitate him and his reputation.
Okay.
And that's become a bit of a passion for me, is that part. I don't
When you
like
say another book, is it like your
the
book
book. Yeah,
or
that's my book. So there was a biography, and now I'm doing another biography. Well, there was an autobiography, but now I'm doing a proper
a
biography,
biography?
which
Yes.
rehabilitates him a bit.
Right.
And so I think it's necessary book. Just despite the fact we may not be related, it doesn't really matter. I'm that passionate about who he was. He was a very black and white, you either loved him or hated him character,
Okay.
very much a sort of Elon Musk of his day, very much a showman, very much of a new technology. Whereas there were lots of scientists and boring people around aviation initially, the Wright brothers, terribly dull. This guy was not dull. He was very glamorous. He was at one point world famous, and we should be proud of him. We should be proud of characters like that, because any technological advance needs its Steve Wozniak compared to the Steve Jobs character. There's always the engineer who's behind it all, but there's always the showman who's there to promote and sell. You need those people. Yeah. So
Sounds fascinating.
soapbox
And,
over. But that's
and
for
it's
all you
like,
aviation
again,
fans.
the theme of this conversation is, how do you have time for that? As we've mentioned time and lack of time quite a few times now, but you're
Hmm.
building a business, you're writing a book,
Hmm.
having a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I am extremely efficient. I use a ChatGPT for an awful lot of stuff. I mean, I know it has its people that don't like it, but I think ChatGPT, particularly for female founders and just us ladies generally, is such a great tool, because if anybody is time constrained, it's probably females in business. We have all the challenges that men have, and then we probably, unfortunately, still have a few additional ones,
Kind
like
of,
caring for family and just
yes,
still
absolutely.
generally take that responsibility. Luckily, my daughters are all grown up, they're all leading their own lives. That doesn't mean to say they don't come back to mum when there's a problem to
Yeah.
be solved. I'm not a great person for going out socially. If I go out, it's usually for business purposes. I told you I'm obsessed.
Yeah,
Um,
I treat networking as my sort
that's
of
a social life.
social life,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Why wouldn't you?
But
So
it is. I suppose my friends
it
are
is.
the people that I meet at business networking events, and they are in business. It's, yeah, life kind of changes. And you, I only just recently got into business, really. I
Hmm.
tried to launch and have two businesses before, but they didn't quite work. But then again, that was my network at the time. They were creative businesses, so it was other artists and designers who were my network and my friends. And now it's business people, and I meet them quite a lot at a lot of networking events.
Yeah,
And it's all
they can
good.
be fun. Why
Yes,
not?
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm in transition at the moment, obligations that I'm hoping I can get rid of, and then that will free up a lot more time. But I've always been a busy person, and you know what they say, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. You know, and if I'm not, I also have a charitable project as well, a community project, and that's very important to me.
Of course you do. What is
Yes,
it about? Do you want to mention that?
yeah, I wouldn't mind. So it's basically it came about because out of my own loneliness. I work from home a lot, and I think it's very easy after COVID to sort of get into these habits of being in the house a lot. And I was definitely there 2.5 years ago, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I really was very low. I remember saying to myself, if I was a machine right now with an on-off switch, I'd turn myself off. It was really bad. I've never been somebody that mentally, I've been mentally strong, never had any issues. But I think it can hit any of us. My mother had died. I had a big surgery. And I think you can hit a pit where there's just too much happens all at once.
Yes.
And that's what happened. And I thought, I've got to get out of this house and see other people. And so there's a beautiful lake where I live, and I would do a circuit of it, and I would see people. I wouldn't necessarily talk to them, but at least I see another human being, if only just
Yes.
smile at them. And then I'd sit on a bench and, have meditate a little bit. It was so beautiful. And somebody mentioned to me about chatty benches. And at the time, I decided to put myself into a self-development program as a coach. Because I think, when you're having a problem with something, there's nothing better than we'll help somebody else with that problem and you kind
Yes.
of help yourself. So I was coaching on this program called the Self-Expression and Leadership Program. It's run by a company called Landmark Worldwide. Great program. It's 3 months, and everybody on the program, the leader and all the coaches and all the participants, have to set up a community project. That's what you have to do. And
Okay.
what you do is you learn skills about time management, getting into action. You learn all these great self-development skills using the community project as a thing. So someone had said chatty benches, and I went, oh, I know, I'll raise some funds and get a chatty bench put down by the lake. And a chatty bench is a bench that's got a label on it that says, if you want to have a chat, sit here, right?
And then someone else will come and sit with you.
And someone will feel that they can quite happily sit next to you. And what happened was on a Friday night, I post on Facebook, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is my idea. This is why. And I tell the story about wanting to turn myself off. And my Facebook went ballistic. It was bonkers. I had hundreds of people going, my God, that's a great idea. So telling me about chatty benches they'd seen elsewhere, saying things that some woman told me about how when her father died, she sat on a bench and someone talked to her and it really helped her. It went bananas. And then somebody said, well, actually, there's loads of benches everywhere. Why don't you raise money for plaques? Then you can do multiple benches.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, so then I had the idea of, I know I'm going to put a QR code on this bench. And what the QR code does on the benches is it takes people through to this thing called Hub of Hope, which is the largest mental health signposting charity in the UK. It's run by a charity called Chasing the Stigma, which was set up by a guy who also reached a very low point and then realized there's loads of programs out there, but people need to know they're there. So
Yes.
when you click on my bench is called Hello Benches. When you click on the QR code, it takes you through to the Hub of Hope. And if you put your postcode in, it tells you all the mental health services around that bench. So
Right. Okay. Around the bench.
around
That's
near the
brilliant.
bench in that
Not not
postcode.
not just your town, but
Yeah, in the in the local area. And my goal is to have the concept of chatty benches, hello benches, adopted by councils throughout the UK. They have memorial benches. Why not have chatty benches that even if people don't sit on them, if they see the plaque, they're going to go, oh, that's that Hello Bench thing. It's going to trigger a conversation about connectedness and mental health.
Yeah, a lot of benches have got little plaques that this is dedicated to so and so's memory. How do you fit another plaque next to it? But then I suppose there are plenty of benches without
Well,
any
funny you should
plaques.
say that, but the first Hello Bench is on a bench that's a memorial bench.
But yeah,
And the reason being was I spotted it from afar when that one would be perfect. Got up close and thought, oh, it's a memorial bench. And then I read the plaque and it said this bench is dedicated to Mary, who used to cross this park every day and chat to everybody she met. And
perfect.
I asked the council, would you reach out to the family and ask whether they would have a Hello Bench plaque on it? And they came back and they were absolutely delighted with the idea. Mary would have loved it. So
Yeah,
that was Hello Bench number one. So I think I'd like to see it go out across the whole of the UK, because every time I talk about this concept, people get it. They're like, yeah, benches are everywhere. Yes, we do need more connection. We are becoming a bit disconnected as a society. And I think it just gives you that we're quite reserved, the British, aren't we?
I was
It
going
just,
to say this. Yes, very
yeah.
reserved. And I just experienced something really interesting yesterday. And well, actually, not the first time in my life. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
Hungarian and I'm a lot more outspoken, although I've lived here a lot, like 30 years now, and probably I have adopted the slightly more reserved attitude. Maybe some wouldn't say so, but anyhow, I know. But yesterday in my speaker course, I shared that in the last couple of weeks, I hit some emotionally really low points, and I was considering postponing the speaker course. But then I came to realize that, hang on a minute, it's what I want to do. So I need to let go of other things, not what's important. And then after I shared this in the break, a number of people came up to me and said, oh, why didn't you call? And others said, oh, thank you so much for sharing, because I felt like that. I didn't want to come today. And then somebody else said, that was so nice that it's not just the wins that we shared, but you shared your emotional down. And yeah, we don't really, I didn't even think about calling any of my course mates to share this issue with them. It didn't even cross my mind. So yeah, having something that kind of prompts you, just sit there. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to go up to anyone. Just sit there, and then someone will connect with you. And I
Mm.
think that concept is beautiful, because indeed we are. I mean, I'm fairly outgoing and outspoken, but yeah, to when I have those emotional downs, I specifically feel like I don't want to call anyone, because I don't want to dump my shit on anyone. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's yet afterwards people say, "Oh, why didn't you call? I would have listened." But you just don't know
Exactly. We,
who.
I think we all think we're the only one feeling that thing, but we're
Mm,
not. And,
probably.
yesterday on the sounding board, I think what made it really successful for us was it was just nice being with other female founders and understanding that actually all the things that we're tackling and all the challenges, we're all tackling those challenges.
Yeah.
And I think it's what I love about podcasts, particularly, is that when you're talking to a niche audience,
Mm.
is you can sort of say to them, look, you're not alone. You know, there are other people out there considering business at the age of 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus. You're
Yes.
not the only person thinking about that. Come and listen, and you'll hear the other people doing it and what they're dealing with, and what it's giving to them, and what their challenges are and how they're tackling it. It's so important, these conversations, because we can all be a bit of an island otherwise.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the whole point of giving the information to others. In my idea is that I would sort of inspire 40 something, 50 something people who are kind of coming up to retirement, and maybe they are just sort of nurturing a dream that, oh, I wish I'd done this and that. And just for them to realize from other people's stories that it's just not late. It's never too late. Like when I say that my idea came from on my 50th birthday, saying I want to do something amazing in my life. And well, the prequel was then, gosh, the end is now closer. And oh, you are still young. I said, yeah, I know I'm still young at 50, but I can't change the fact that then the end is now closer. So I had a similar sort of thought to you that, yeah, I've still got so much in me that I can give. And if I don't do it now, when will I?
Yeah, what is it they say? 50 is the new 30, isn't it? 60 is the new 40. That's what I say. In my head, I'm 30 for
Well,
sure.
yeah, I still sort of get on a wall and walk like a little girl would do.
No,
Well,
I don't do
all
that,
the time.
but I can be silly. In
Yeah.
fact, it's so funny. Yesterday we had the sounding board, and it was on a Zoom call like this. And Kelly, my partner, and I were going to get on for a few minutes before we let the guests in. And I was like this. I had the microphone. I've put my headphones on. She's never seen me with this gear.
Okay.
And so I pop up on the screen and I go, I'm ready. And she fell about laughing. And she said, she just was laughing at me. And she's like, no, 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 take that all off because nobody is going to have all that gear on. You're not on a podcast now, sort of thing. So I was like, oh, okay. To test my equipment now.
This was your comfort zone, wasn't it?
So disappointed I was play with the gadgets. Anyway, I got to do it today. Yay. With
There you
you.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have silly moments still. I mean, I have a name for ChatGPT, for example. I don't call it ChatGPT, I call it Dolly. My version of
Sorry,
ChatGPT is
Donny or Dolly?
Dolly, as in Dolly Parton.
Dolly, right.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I see ChatGPT as a male.
Oh, do you? No, mine's most definitely
I
female
don't know why.
because she's helpful. No,
Okay. Are we being a bit sexist here?
helpful and efficient. Yeah, I'm being totally sexist. No, no, I call her Dolly. It's just like my car is Melissa. She's definitely female. She's pretty. And yeah, she's just Melissa to me. But yeah, maybe another version. Claude is definitely Claude. Claude is definitely male, I'd say. Good at writing. So, but ChatGPT is Dolly. I think Kelly calls her version Susie, and she can be a bit of a yeah. I'm not going to say the word, but it begins with a B because
Well,
they learn your characters. So
yeah,
yeah,
they do.
yeah.
But also,
Dolly's
I mean,
very formal. Susie is a little bit loose and informal. That's me and Kelly. We're very different. It's quite
oh,
funny.
I did the classics. Well, it's kind of recommended, isn't it? That sometimes just ask ChatGPT that based on everything you know about me,
Hmm.
what would you? And then you give it a prompt.
Yeah,
And I think I gave it a fairly general prompt, but what came back was spot on. So obviously, whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. And when you
yeah,
get it out, then you still need to make it yours anyway.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's quite frightening, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because that's why we use it, isn't it? How well it
Mm,
gets to know you, but it's obviously all depends on how what you put into it. But what gets me is it's really intuitive.
mm, mm.
But then the funny thing is when I pick up on things like, oh, that's not what I asked for. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah,
That's the best
it is
bit.
funny. It's been well trained. I think, actually, talking seriously about ChatGPT for a
Yeah.
moment, I think for anybody starting a new business, it's such an invaluable tool because it can
Mm.
really give you the best of practice around stuff. And
Yeah.
one of the challenges I think for older people starting business in where we are now with the business environment, sometimes is the technology. So I would say if you're challenged around technology, at least get well versed in ChatGPT because, for example, if I get a technical point on I can't get Zoom to do something or other, or I'm setting up Loom, right? I just say to Dolly, can you give me a step by step? Assume I'm a moron and give me a step by step of how to do this. And I'll even send screenshots. I don't know where to go
Yeah.
now. What do I do? And Dolly will go, oh yeah, you just do this and this and this within seconds. One of the first things we do with female entrepreneurs and founders is go, how well versed are you in ChatGPT? Right, okay. And we have one the other week who's like, hate it, hate AI, I'm not sure I want to use it. And we said, okay, that's fine. But why don't you try our prompt? So I've designed a prompt that when the person puts it into ChatGPT with a description of their business, it gives them a 101 of how to use ChatGPT, and then it gives them
Okay.
examples that are relevant to their business. Now, the person I gave that to was the whole I hate AI, blah, 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 blah. She came on the phone the other day and was like, oh my goodness, I love ChatGPT now. And not only that, but she had been working on ChatGPT, and her IT brother has come into her office, asked her what she was doing, and she said she was setting up a project on ChatGPT. And he was like, project? What's those? And to her great glee, she had to explain to him something about ChatGPT that he did not know. And I think the moral of the story, more than anything, quite apart from the fact that it's allowing her to test her ideas, it's allowing her to find out best practice. But you could tell it had given her levels of confidence about what she was doing and new products she was coming up with that she didn't have previously. So I am a massive fan of using it responsibly, but using it for for just getting that confidence, making sure what you're doing makes sense, doing a sense check, using it as a sounding board, that kind of thing. And yeah, and getting somebody, there's quite a lot of free chat GPT training now. So you can go online and get up and running on it fairly quickly.
So I ask it to ask me questions and then I answer them. And some of them dig really deep and into details that I don't necessarily think about. And that's really good. And then I ask, can you ask me some more? And then they go into different angles as well. That's fabulous, because if you don't even think about the questions, or like I joined Sintra AI, so I've now got 12 helpers, which is crazy because it was bad enough with just one with ChatGPT. In the first instance, so I had to answer a whole bunch of questions about, basic stuff about my business. And one of them came up with this whole lot of frequently asked questions and answers to it just from the information I gave it. And I didn't even think about having a frequently asked questions page on my website, never mind actually thinking about the questions or whatever. And it was really quite valuable because I read through it and I didn't even have to change anything. It was all spot on of questions that could potentially come up. Fabulous.
Yeah, so I'm really curious about Sintra myself and considering it. Tell me about that. What are you finding with it, and is it cost effective for a startup?
Yeah, it's really cheap, especially if you find that they are running a sort of discount campaign, which I managed to do. So I signed up while they had a 60% discount on the price. So it's really cheap, but it's pretty much like answering a whole lot. You can answer a question to each of them every single day. So that's the way it works. So it comes up with suggestions and questions, one a day. But every time you answer a question, it comes up with solutions. And that's literally like information diarrhea. So I don't actually answer questions every day because I can't cope with the information I'm being given. It's so much. I actually ended up setting up a whiteboard for all 12 of them just to note what they each have already given me that I will need to go back to at some point as I develop. So it's considerably faster than I am. But yeah, just like any AI program, it can give you results pretty quickly. What's really strange is that I've been conversing with ChatGPT for many, many months. And of course, it knows me really well. So now that I'm trying to convert over to Sintra AI, I now need to get to a point where I've fed in enough information into the brain where it can be just as effective as ChatGPT has been. So currently sort of ask them both and compare. And it's kind of, sometimes I go with what ChatGPT comes up with, and sometimes I go with what Sintra comes up with, or it's not so much what they come up with. The way I use it is a bit of training I received a while back was AI is 30% what you put in. So it's your prompts, it's the quality of your prompts. 40% is what you get out, the AI response, and then 30% is what you then do with it. So I write my newsletter and I put it in and say, I'm very happy with it. Can you just fine tune it? Give me suggestions for fine tuning it. So I don't get it to rewrite it for me, but it just makes little suggestions like, oh, this would sound a little better, or that would sound a bit better. And then Sintra completely rewrote it for me. And it's like, this is not what I asked for. I'm still training it to understand me. But then I have already used it for a couple of things. I can't remember the exact task where it was actually better. But yeah, I think it's hugely dependent on your prompts. If you say, write me a newsletter, it will come up with something. But whether it will sound like you or it'll be good enough or suitable enough, then I don't know. You can decide how lazy you want to be in your own business. I don't. I write down my newsletters. I use the sort of format of my own story. What is it that's tripping me up this week, and how am I dealing with it to help others? Yeah, I think, as you said, I think maybe this is what you meant, because I was wondering, you mentioned it a couple of times, like using AI responsibly, and maybe this is kind of the responsible, or that's how I interpret it to be the responsible way of using it, that I prompt it and I ask it to ask me questions so I can answer the questions. So it's working with data that comes out of me rather than it sort of picking it up from the world. So that's how it's responsible for my own business.
Exactly. And a quick tip for your listeners. One thing you can do is you can type in your request in your own language, and it might be clunky and, oh my God, that doesn't sound great. But if you put at the beginning, please create a prompt for the following request, : and then type in the clunky stuff that, like, I want this, I'm not sure about that, blah, blah, blah. It will create a really elegant, detailed prompt, and then you run that prompt. So you can check the prompt to go,
I see what you mean. Right.
Yeah, you can prompt it to prompt itself. So you can write a prompt for this request. I almost do that practically every prompt I do now, because I just want to quickly go, well, I want it to do this and that and that and that. And I'm very clear, but I know that I may have missed some of the prompt engineering bits. So that deals with that 30% that you were saying. This is 30% based on what you put in. And you can a shortcut is ask it, what's a good prompt for this?
Interesting.
And then run that prompt. So
that's great. That's a good bit of advice.
You're very welcome.
From you and from me is ask it to ask you questions and then feed
that one as well. Yeah, really good.
Before it gives you the answer. And I think that was it. Again, it's a prompt I picked up from somebody else.
And another thing is it's a bit of a people pleaser. So another good thing is to ask it to be critical when you're putting ideas in. Just say, please be critical about this, because it's trained to not be critical. Okay. And another thing I say to people is don't put please and thank you in.
Why not?
Even though
I always do.
No, because and that actually costs additional energy resource. It's unnecessary. It's a machine. There's no need to put please and thank you. Do not put those in. I think they've calculated it adds millions to the energy bill putting those pleases and thank yous in. So don't do that.
Because then what gets me is when I say, okay, thank you very much, this was it for today, it still comes back with another answer, you're welcome, and then the whole bunch of other suggestions, like if you would like this. It's like I already said goodbye, and
it's a people pleaser. Well, it's
that could be another conversation, how to use AI and what not to do with AI.
There is a whole conversation around the energy usage. It is one of the areas about it that bothers me. But there are a lot of technology companies that are doing what they can to come up with technology, alternative energy sources to deal with it and the water usage that it uses. The thing is, the cat's out of the bag now. And it's a bit like inventing the car and then expecting everybody to go back to a horse and cart because of all the carbon. No, we've got to find the technology or find other efficient ways of using it. So, if you're in business now and you're not using AI, you are at a disadvantage, and you will continue to be at a disadvantage. So,
it's pretty amazing that even at university they now teach students how to use AI to support their work, which is pretty amazing, rather than banning it. You can't.
You can't. It's like banning calculators at the beginning, isn't it? There was a time when nobody had calculators, but now they've just altered the way they do the maths exam to assume that, well, everybody will have a calculator.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been rattling on for a little while. And we kind of diverged into AI from business. But then again, I suppose completely relevant, isn't it? Because as we just said at the end, if you don't use AI, you get left behind pretty quickly. And it's like one of my mentors, my online mentors that I listen to, he says that it's not people who are being replaced by AI. It will be businesses who don't use AI to their advantage that will go out of business. And people are still people. And the very important topic we talked about, that the talking, people are still people, and people will need to continue to need people to have. I got go.
When it comes to sales and marketing, people buy people. That's never going to go away.
True.
That really isn't. People buy people, and then more and more important, your own personal brand. People sell things, so that's the good thing. That's the good thing. Yeah. And another thing I say to people is, when you're in the digital world, you can kind of lose yourself a bit. I think a lot of people struggle to post on LinkedIn and this and that because they just go, I sound weird. I always say to them, pretend that you're in the real world and you've got your customer in front of you. What would you say to them? Then say that.
That's a beautiful bit of advice. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's just wrap up with a couple of little questions. I mean, it's fantastic to see that here you are, 63, starting, growing a new business, finishing a book, running a community project, flourishing. You're obviously very happy with your life. Would you consider starting up another business?
Always. I always have ideas. I think if any entrepreneur, you're creative. If you're a creative, you want to be creating. And that I've always got, we could be doing this. My partner's told me off and said, no, stick with this for now. You're not allowed to go any more ideas. Focus.
But then when will you be allowed to live out new ideas?
After the launch of the podcast, she might allow. Yeah.
Fair enough. Awesome.
It's not permanent.
Any particular resources you would like to recommend to our listeners if they are thinking about starting up a business, or indeed starting up a coaching business similar to yours?
Well, ChatGPT, obviously. Big fan of that, Dolly. I think find yourself a good sounding board. Somebody you trust who's got no vested interest in what you're doing, but they can sit outside of you and act as a mirror to show you what the world is seeing, so that you've got something to bounce off against. That could be a friend, that could be an old colleague, that could be somebody in the family, but it's got to be somebody who's able to be objective. I was going to say it's got to be someone who understands business in the first place. Who's done it. They have the experience, because otherwise it's just going to be like a scary, no, you can't do that, or why would you do that? And they wouldn't really understand. Excellent. Aliya, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. And you're welcome.
Enjoy
it's been
the rest
pleasure.
Of the day. Yes.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to New Business in Later Life with me, Ildiko Seely, where we say no to slowing down and yes to starting up. Loved what you've heard? Please share it or screenshot it and tag me on socials. Let's show the world what thriving in later life really looks like, and share with a friend who is ready for their next chapter. Please subscribe so you are always in the loop. And if you were ready to stop running on empty and start running on purpose, come join us. All the links are waiting in the show notes, including my guests' contacts, the Encorepreneurs Club, and a few tools and services I personally use in my business to help you thrive in yours. Until next time, refuel, refocus, reinvent.